All righty. It is 6:30 o'clock, and as our agenda says, it's time to begin. So let us do so. Welcome. Welcome to the fall meeting of the Antler River Watershed Regional Council. I'm glad you're here. I'm Jane Van Patter, President of the Antler River Watershed Regional Council. If you're new to the Regional Council and wondering and worrying about what to do and how to participate in this very exciting meeting of the ARW, fear not, be bold and courageous. Coming to this meeting with an open mind and an open heart, mindful of holy manners, equity aspirations, and our Affirm commitments, all of which we'll hear about shortly, and listen to reports, watch video reports, and participate in small group breakout room conversations is key to who we are, what we do, and how we live our faith as a community of faith known as the Antler River Watershed Region. Last Sunday, in my role as president of the ARW, I was invited to attend a church anniversary service and participate in the covenanting between the community of faith and the region. The guest preacher delivered a powerful, thought-provoking, and inspiring sermon that named two significant current events: the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the overwhelming flooding occurring in Pakistan, and our response to Ukraine and lack of response to Pakistan. I wonder why that is. What's the difference? The final sentence of the Executive Secretary, Reverend Cheryl Ann Stadelbauer-Sampa's sermon was this: how we approach our differences makes a difference. As the Antler River Watershed Regional Council Community of Faith gathered here this weekend, my hope is that we are open to hearing, learning, celebrating, being moved, motivated, and inspired during our time together. At the conclusion of our meeting tomorrow, my hope is that we will be ready to go and make a difference in the world, in the region, and in the communities where we live. So then, my friends, as God assured Joshua, named as leader of the people of Israel following the death of Moses, fear not, be bold and courageous. The rest of that verse offers these words of assurance: and I, your God, will be with you. May it be so for us. Amen. And now, I constitute this meeting in the name of Jesus Christ, the one true head of the church, and by the authority vested in me by the Antler River Watershed Regional Council, for whatever business may properly come before it. As we begin the meeting tonight, I would like to take time to acknowledge the leadership team. Many of the names will be included on the slide that you see, and some are not on the slide, but I am naming them. So this meeting, or any meeting of this sort, is made possible because of the gifts and the abilities of many people working together. Present with me in the Zoom broadcast room, on location at the Best Western Stone Ridge in London, is Executive Secretary Cheryl Ann Stadelbauer-Sampa, Executive Assistant and Recording Secretary Sue Dillobin, and the Chair of Business and Agenda, Carrie Stover. Needing their own space in the room down the hall is Worship Leader Greg Simpson and Music Leader and Musician Mark Smith. From Zoom spaces and places elsewhere, Brad Morrison is serving as parliamentarian, Therese Samuel, Regional Staff Minister for Right Relations and Social Justice, is serving as Equity Support Team member. Pam Wilcox is leading community building sessions. The Zoom techs are John Neff, Michelle Pettick, and Fatima Kukadia-Kinting. Our two chaplains are Charmaine Bailey and Carrie Wagner. Should you feel the need to reach out to either of the chaplains, their names are listed near the top of the participant's name in the chat box list, so you can find them quickly and reach out to them directly and privately. Oh, and a few more things. Please ensure that your microphone is muted so that barking dogs, telephones ringing, and conversations going on in the background where you are are not distracting to what we are doing, where we are. Your thoughtful consideration is appreciated. And a word about breaks. If before we get to a break on the agenda, you need a comfort break, be it a washroom, or to stand and stretch, or to rest your screen-strained eyes, or whatever it is you need to do, just do it. And now I would like to call upon Therese to lead us with the brave and affirming statements. Therese, I'll let you introduce yourself at this point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, President Jane. And thank you for the invitation to serve as your equity support person for this meeting. I'm going to start out with introducing myself. We can just leave the brave commitments up on the screen if you like. So my name is Therese Samuel. I use the pronouns she and her, and as President Jane mentioned, I'm on staff for the 3 regions of Southwestern Ontario, including Antler River Watershed, supporting ministries of right relations and social justice. And I am also serving in the role as your equity support person for this meeting today and tomorrow. And equity support, many of you may be familiar with it. It may be new to some of you. Equity support is part of the church living into our commitments to be an intercultural church and an anti-racist church. As equity support person, one of my tasks is to be attentive to where equity is addressed or not addressed in this meeting. And this means justice being addressed or injustice not being addressed in the meeting. But my bigger role is in supporting each of you to do the same. So I invite you to be attentive to equity. If you notice injustice in any way in the meeting, in words or actions, or on the flip side, if you notice and want to lift up and celebrate justice being addressed in a way that is helpful, and you would like to share or reflect on it, reach out to contact me. In a little bit, I'll be putting my contact information in the chat. So what kind of thing might I be talking about? For example, it could be a comment that might make you or someone else feel hurt or diminished or excluded. It could be a process that seems to give more power or voice to some and less power or voice to others. It includes things related to race or ethnicity or right relations between Indigenous and settler peoples, or sexual orientation, gender identity, ability or accessibility, but it is not limited to those things. Anything, I mean, if something leaves you feeling a bit, I don't know if that's okay, send me an email or give me a call. I will be sitting here waiting to hear from you. And once I will put my contact information in the chat once we have gone through the brave and affirming information. So during this time together, one of the things that we ask that each of us and we corporately commit to is community safety. And so let us strive in this time of co-learning to be B-R-A-V-E, brave. B, being accountable to the impact of both our words and our silence. Reflecting and naming our own biases. Actively listening. Vocalizing questions that arise from our learning, and encountering new ideas with curiosity and wonder. May we create a space together that offers as much safety as we can. And a reminder that Antler River Watershed regional council is an affirming ministry. And our statement, your statement as a region is, the vision statement is a commitment to safety, sanctuary, unconditional love. Striving to be faithful followers of Jesus in our time and place, Antler River Watershed Regional Council will continue to remove barriers to participation in the life and work of the Regional Council and society, committing ourselves to be open to the Spirit. Resisting all forms of oppression, we welcome and celebrate people of any sexual orientation and gender identity, and all others who are marginalized. Next slide, please. Or is that all you've got?
That's
John,
all, Therese.
John, is that the last slide? Okay.
Right.
All right, I'm just gonna. Have I got? Oh, I haven't got them pulled up. Okay, I had another slide, but that's fine. So that is from the Affirming Ministry Action Plan, and I will also put a link to that in the chat in a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Therese. Much appreciated for that. I am now going to call upon Carrie for the opening procedural motions, and these are being moved by Carrie and seconded by Cheryl Ann, as I understand. Carrie, take it away.
Thanks, President Jane. And friends, I'm hoping all of you have downloaded the workbook that was sent out by link this week, either downloaded it or printed it. I see a number of thumbs up, which is great. Just a few highlights, if you glossed over it quickly before, as you're having supper this evening. Page 23 is our agenda for tonight and tomorrow. Page 21 and 22 are the budget that will be talked about tomorrow. And then the procedural motions start on page 24, especially that one I have tonight. There's also reports from General Counsel 44, and the region commissions as well are within the workbook for your perusal, especially if you suffer from insomnia. You might want to have a good look at those and as well. As this is my first meeting as chair of business and agenda, I have the procedural motion to accept proposal number 1 as presented on the screen. It has been amended from what you had in the workbook if you downloaded that 2 days ago. It was changed. We had one item in this, which was a carryover from the June meeting. And so that is now been taken out of this as well. And so I move that this proposal number 1 be accepted as presented. And Cheryl Ann, are you seconding it?
Yes, I am.
We have a motion that the proposal Carrie is presented as amended be accepted. It's been moved, it's been seconded. There is going to be a Zoom poll up now. And the method of the Zoom poll is you either click on yes or you click on no. Assuming I did not ask first, are there any questions? The motion is carried. Yes, it was 100%. 65 out of 65. Thank you. All right, that was a little sloppy on my part, but we're there. All righty. All right, Greg and Mark, we look to them now for worship and music. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Jane. I say welcome on behalf of me.
On behalf of Mark, we are so blessed to be joining you this evening. Now, we know that you are joining us from many different places and locations, and so we recognize that the land that is known as Southwestern Ontario today has been and continues to be the home of many Indigenous nations. A land acknowledgement from the perspective of one community may inadvertently silence or misrepresent the history of another. The configuration of Indigenous people who have lived with and cared for this land, it has shifted over time and may be difficult to pinpoint today. And so I invite you now to take a minute and share names of current Indigenous people or current Indigenous nations, or perhaps organizations who are doing exciting things or who reside in the areas where you are. It would be wonderful if you would just flood the comment stream with the names and connections to many Indigenous people. Throughout the years, people of many nations and nationalities have been part of the creation of the world that we see and know around us. Some of them were oppressed. Some of them were not given choice or liberty over their involvement. Today, we pray our thanks for the conservancy and the lessons of all oppressed people in our past, and we collectively renew our commitment to recognize and undo legacy injustices, to listen to the stories, to intentionally build better relationships between all races and nations. Let us collectively come before the Creating One as we offer our prayers, as we hear holy stories, and as we sing sacred songs. Now, here at the Stone Ridge Inn, we have been asked not to use a live flame. So that's why there's not a Christ candle sitting here. But we recognize Christ's light in each and every one of us. And so in the time that would typically or traditionally be the lighting of a Christ candle, I want you to take just a brief moment and find the Christ within you. Find the light that brought you here to this place today. And once you find it, share it. Now, for some of you, it might be a flickering flame. Some of you, it might be a roaring inferno. However it is that Christ is working in your life, share it. The same way we share our Christ candle each time we meet. Now, being that we are joining each other via Zoom, it's a little bit trickier to sing together. So thankfully, Mark and I are going to try and lead you. What you do need to do is make sure you remain muted. We want you to sing your hearts out, and we're going to feel it from here, even if we can't hear it. Because if you unmuted yourself, it would be a beautiful cacophony of noise, and none of us would get to the end of the song at the same time. So I invite you to sing along. We're going to sing A Song Must Rise. If you have more voices with you, it's 142. The words will be on the screen for you. We're going to sing verses 1 and 3.
A song must rise for the Spirit to descend. Oh, a song must rise once again, singing out God's praises and glory. The faithful voices blend. Oh, a song must rise for the Spirit to descend. From the mountains to the valleys, from the desert to the sea, a song must rise once again. From the voices of our leaders, the voice of you and me, a song must rise for the Spirit to descend. Oh, a song must rise for the Spirit to descend. Oh, a song must rise once again, singing out God's praises and glory. The faithful voices blend. Oh, a song must rise for the Spirit to descend. From every house of worship, in every song must rise once again. From the villages and cities, a new song must be sung. A song must rise for the Spirit to descend. Oh, a song must rise for the Spirit to descend. Oh, a song must rise once again. Singing out God's praises and glory, the faithful voices blend. Oh, a song must rise for the Spirit to descend.
I can say with some authority that you sound amazing. And part of that is because you get to hear you the way everybody else hears you. Thank you so much for joining in and singing along with us. Let us join our hearts as we pray. Loving God, whose touch can heal the broken places of life, touch each and every one of us today. God of peace, whose spirit of peace can quiet our spirits of confusion and despair, reassure us today. Forgiving God, whose call to repentance promises grace upon grace, place your mercy in our souls today. You who heal the sick and liberate the imprisoned, who bring justice in the midst of oppression and strength in the midst of weakness, pour out your spirit of power upon us today. Open our hearts to new faithfulness. Redirect our waywardness and hold us gently in your goodness. We confess our need to you and we turn to you with hearts filled with hope, remembering that the promises that you have made to each and every one of us. May your name be glorified in us and through us. We ask this through Jesus Christ, your only begotten Son, he who is our Lord, our Savior, our brother, and our friend. Amen. And we're going to sing again. So if you want to flip to page 138 in More Voices, we'll sing together, My Love Colors Outside the Lines. And once again, the words will be on the screen for you.
Outside the lines, exploring paths that few could ever find, and takes me into places where I've never been before, and opens doors to worlds outside the lines. My Lord, colored outside the lines, turns words to blessings, water into wine, and takes me into places where I've never been before, and opens doors to worlds outside the lines. We'll never walk on water if we're not prepared to drown. Body and soul need a soaking from time to time. And we'll never move the gravestones if we're not prepared to die and realize there are worlds outside the lines. My soul longs to color outside the lines. Tear back the curtain, sun, come in and shine. I want to walk beyond the boundaries where we've never been before. Throw open doors to worlds outside the lines.
Thank you so much for joining us in our brief opening worship this evening. This morning. I knew I was going to do that. It is this evening. Perhaps we have people joining us from the UK where it is morning.
Yes.
And I will turn it back to President Jane.
Oh dear. Morning, evening, it's whatever time it is, we're here. So thank you, Mark and Greg, for, wow, really getting us going here. Appreciate it. And now it's time for some community building. And Pam Wilcox is leading us in community building. Now, here's the thing, and the thing is this. Pam isn't able to be attending the meeting in person this weekend, but Pam has done a lot of work behind the scenes in preparation for this meeting. And so we are going to turn to Pam by way of the video she's presented, and she will be leading us in the community building via video, both this evening and tomorrow. And so here we are, community building. Happiness is making friends.
Good evening, my ARW friends. I'm so excited that you are here tonight. The spring meeting seems like so long ago, but here we are gathered afresh and anew, gathered to make a difference and to be a part of that difference. Now, one of the highlights I always experience, no matter what the event or the gathering, is that the fellowship steals the show. I mean, you know what I mean. We reflect back on that great conversation we had with our friends or friends that we connected with that we hadn't seen in a while. And, well, we talk about all that stuff before we talk about anything about the business of why we gathered. So tonight, I'm going to give you a head start. I'm giving you the opportunity to create some of those wonderful memories of fellowship. I'm inviting you into small breakout rooms with about 6 or 7 people. I want to keep it small so you actually have some time to have real conversation. We have no issue for you to discuss, no important question to consider. Nope. This is what I'm calling free chat time. Now, here's how we're going to play along. I'm going to encourage each of you to spend like 1 or 2 minutes just to briefly talk about yourself. You might tell us about your family or your hobbies, your collections, what brings you joy. And after each person has had a moment or two of that kind of sharing of oneself, let some good old-fashioned conversation happen. You've just heard a bunch of things that you could springboard off of. Like, think about if you were sitting at the conference table and you're having small talk with the people around you. This is kind of the stage that we're setting for you. Think of your breakout room as that little table, and you're just gathered around, excited for the meeting that's about to happen. Okay, maybe excited for the meeting is a little stretch, but you're happy to be together. So let's go with that. And then, please, be polite. Give everyone an opportunity to participate. Recognize that some people are quieter than others, and so give them some space. You won't have enough time. I'm going to tell you that right now. There's no need to email or put on the feedback that we did not have enough time. We know you won't, because we know that you're good talkers. But also, we're doing this on purpose. I want you to wish that you had more time, because that means you enjoyed the moment that you did have. And you've connected with the people in your breakout room, which is the whole point of this. So, if at the end of your conversation, you are just wishing that you could have a little more time with a certain person in that room or a couple of people in that room, this is what I want you to do. I want you to write down their names so that you don't forget them. You're not going to remember the name. Write it down. And when there's a moment in the meeting that follows, go to the chat place, and you can click the little down arrow. It says everyone and a down arrow, and you'll find the name of the person you just wrote down. You can click on their name and send them a private message that says, hey, I really enjoyed our conversation. I would love to connect with you more. So maybe you change email addresses or a phone number. Maybe you might even live in the same city and get together for coffee. The options are endless. This is a fantastic opportunity because we all know fellowship is truly important. And happiness is making friends.
Okay, everybody back from the breakout rooms? I hope you had a good opportunity to have some sharing time around the virtual table, if you will. And and experience the happiness of making friends or continuing on in the friendships that you already have. We are now going to move on to the Hope Council video, and this is presented by Art Hiley of London. And he has submitted a video for us to look at related to the Hope Council. So John, if we could see that now, please.
Welcome to the Hope Council. Sit down, sip your coffee, and let us explain how you can fulfill new dreams of ministry in your community of faith.
We are now entering a new time in the life of the church. It seems like we are awakening from the COVID-19 nightmare and can begin to focus on how Jesus wants to use us to share his love and good news.
Let's take a look at how we can help you get started to make your new ministry ideas a reality.
Hi again. You might be wondering what sort of ministries we support. Well, we are open to any and all proposals. If you think God is leading you to start a new ministry, let's talk about it and see if we can help.
Here are a few ministries we have supported this year. St. Paul's United Church in Aylmer has been working on developing their media ministry and wanted to improve the software they were using, but they also wanted to give resources to members of their community of faith to help them grow. So they asked for a grant to participate in the Faith Life Equip program. This is an integrated suite of programs. It includes professional media presentation software and the ability to develop their personal website. It also included access for every member of the congregation to adult education courses for the beginner to college level, plus Christian movies for adults and children. As well, every member of the congregation has access to one of the most comprehensive Bible software programs available, Logos Bible Software.
Mount Zion United Church wanted to build a 100-space early years learning center, rooted in their values of kindness, respect and fairness. This would put Mount Zion on the map, and bring many families to the church campus daily. In order to do this, they needed to conduct a feasibility study. So, we gave them a grant to help get things going.
Another congregation wanted to improve their caring for their people, so they applied for a grant to train a group of members to be special caregivers using the Stephen Ministries model. Children's ministries, youth ministries, adult discipleship ministries, outreach ministries. If you are developing new ways of doing ministry, let's talk. There are 3 things that we don't support. 1. Programs that are already functioning. Example: if you are seeking a grant for youth ministry, it needs to be for a new program within your youth ministry, not something you have been doing in the past. The second thing we do not support is individual or series of conferences, workshops, seminars and special events. If you are developing a conference ministry, we will help with the startup costs, but not the conferences, workshops, seminars or special events themselves. Finally, we will not help with the actual building or renovations of facilities. However, we will help with finances you might need to get the necessary licenses or studies to move ahead with building. Give me the money. We all want to know what kind of grants and how much we can apply for. We have 2 types of grants. 1. Creative New Ministry Grants. You have an idea, we want to give it a kickstart. We want to give communities of faith seed money to give them the opportunity to discover the merits of the new ministry and if it is sustainable. The maximum grant that we give to any new ministry is $5,000. After we have reviewed the application, we make a decision on the amount of the grant and notify the community of faith. Now here is something you really want to know. Communities of faith can apply for a number of grants during a year. But the total amount a community of faith can receive during a calendar year is $10,000. 2. New Ministry Rooting Grant. Some time to get a ministry up and running needs extra help to become rooted, sustainable. A congregation can apply for a new rooting grant the year following the initial grants to make sure the ministry is viable and that the necessary funds can be sought to maintain it.
We also have a limited fund to help students who are in training for the order of ministry. Students seeking funds are to complete the student assistance application. Applications will only be dealt with at our regular meetings, so students need to apply using the same schedule as congregations applying for new ministry grants. The key is to plan ahead. We will be looking forward to hearing how God is leading you into new ministries. Don't forget to go to our website www.uchopecouncil.ca to find the application forms to apply for a grant. God bless and happy new ministry dreaming.
Wow, that was very animated. Thank you. And I hope that you will take advantage of the Hope Council grants. Sounds like there's lots of opportunity and possibility there. Our next video, to be shown in a few minutes, is presented by Adam Cresswell. Now, a few weeks ago, Horseshoe Falls, Antler, and Antler River Watershed regions were approached by Trinity United Church Kitchener and WOW region, asking if we would join that region in raising awareness and taking action as concerns housing crisis and housing justice, especially now as winter is coming. Take a look at this video by Drew Cresswell of the Hub in Kitchener.
Hello there. You're probably wondering why there's someone coming to you live from inside of a closet. Well, there's a good reason for that, but I'm going to make you wait a little bit before I explain why I'm coming to you from this interesting location. My name is Adam Cresswell. I am the Executive Director of the Hub Community Network. The Hub's mission is to connect young people with the liberating love of Christ and empower them to build a more just and inclusive world. The Hub does this in a number of ways. We have a few different branches of ministry. We are folks who came from the United Church Summer Camp community and wanted to inject the fun and joy and vibrancy and deep discipleship formation of summer camps into the school year and into our lives beyond summer camp. So the Hub operates a number of branches of our ministry. We have large events like worship services and justice workshops. We have a home church network of worshiping communities in local areas of youth and young adults led by youth and young adults that we call our sub-hub network. We run inter-church youth group events and regional youth events, and we're also doing some new work in digital ministry with our friends and grandparent congregation of Trinity United Church Kitchener. And that's actually why I'm coming to you here live today. See, I've been spending a lot of time here in this odd location because we're working on a new project that we want to share and invite you to join us in. The new project is a podcast, which is why I've been sitting in here in this wonderful recording location where the sound is really crisp and clear. In here, I've been recording our first few episodes of a new project that is a podcast called Winter is Coming. And this podcast is all about how we go from housing crisis to housing justice, both in our cities, in our province, and in our country. We have been talking to local politicians, federal politicians, provincial politicians, nonprofit leaders, and those who work on the front lines of the housing crisis and those who are street involved, and having conversations about how we move from housing crisis to housing justice. Today, I wanted to share a couple clips from Winter is Coming with you. The podcast is available in audio form anywhere that you can find a major podcast platform. You just search Winter is Coming. But today, I've got a couple of video clips special for you all to get a taste of what these conversations are like and why we're looking for the United Church to come and play a pivotal role alongside us in this project. So please enjoy a couple of clips, and then I'll come back with a little more details on what that ask is.
Community that's being felt. I'm encouraged. I was, at an event just a few weeks ago, and it was one of the founders of a tech company didn't introduce himself as a founder. Just came up and said, "Mike, I want to hear about what you're doing on the housing crisis, and I want to know what I can do to help."
Okay, awesome.
And so I think it's important that we make these connections too, that there are some in the tech community who are looking to lead and are recognizing the intersections. No one in our community is immune. I like talking about a nurse I spoke with this past summer who shared with me that she can't afford the cost of rent. And she was moving to Stratford as a result. And so if you're concerned about wait times at the hospital, recognizing the connection between that and the housing crisis we're in, no one is immune, no one is buffered, and we all need to recognize that the way we respond to both the housing and the homelessness crisis in our community is already defining and will continue to define the kind of community we live in.
Yeah. And that was something that came up as I was talking with Laura May Lindo last week is understanding that this is it's easy to kind of have a distance from this issue, or to sort of try and cordon it off and say, well, it only affects me in one way. Like if I'm someone who's able to enter, has the wealth and privilege and luck to enter, the market real estate, you might think, well, it's mortgage prices, and then therefore the Bank of Canada interest rate, and it's house prices that are really affecting me. But that's the end of the housing continuum, and it's one stop along the way of this problem that is sprawling all over. And so to recognize that we not only do we not have distance, like you said, from something that how it intersects with healthcare, it intersects with our neighbors, and so understanding that there are people who are not just members of the community in this abstract way, but living into us, seeing these people as our neighbors. And for those of us who come from a faith background and have a kind of a neighbor love ethic, or grounding to us, I think that's something that we need to lean into more, because it does, as Laura May Lindo talked about, it's about imagining a different kind of community that we can have, the one that hopefully we all want.
100%.
Sometimes it's literally just putting it into the universe, and you would be surprised that you are not the only one who is putting that into the universe.
Yeah.
And then that's what actually ends up getting someone's attention, right? Because from a spiritual space, that's what you got to talk it into being. You've got to believe it and imagine it in order for it to happen. And what stops us and what makes us frightened is when we say, oh my gosh, we have encampments in the city, and we can't imagine what the world could look like. And then you start to document out loud all of the obstacles standing in the way. The government doesn't care. The elected officials aren't listening. There aren't enough supports for this. There's no alternative system for that. Oh my gosh, there's no space in the world for us to build these houses. Absolutely untrue. All of those things can be solved, and you don't have to have every part of the solution, but we do have to start imagining something different. And I think if we sort of encourage people to be part of that imagining, not based on electoral districts or your age and whether you can vote, but based on your ability to imagine a world that is literally grounded in love, something different can happen.
So, you see, these conversations are not just about how we survive a crisis, but how do we move from housing crisis to housing justice. The Hub is all about empowering young people to find out and be equipped into how they can build a more just and inclusive world. And that's how we follow the rich tradition of the United Church's commitment to justice and inclusion, and the vision that God has for a world of liberation and flourishing for all people. Because as disciples, that's what we're all about. We're in the business of bringing that vision for the world into practice through the power of the Spirit of love and the Spirit of justice and the Spirit of truth. And so in this project, we are going to be continuing along, having more conversations, but we need your help. We need more than just guests. We need more than just listeners, and we hope that you will listen. We actually need partners to make this project possible. This is not something that's located just in a single community or just with a single church. This crisis spans everywhere that the United Church of Canada exists. And so we're looking for partners in the form of individuals, in the form of churches, communities of faith, summer camps, regions, to help be part of this team of growing this project. We want to be able to inform and equip everyday people, whether they're churchgoers or they're not churchgoers, whether they're young people or they're established in their lives or they're elderly. We want to be able to inform and equip anyone with this project to know how they can help advance the cause of housing justice, how they can move us from housing crisis to housing justice. And so that's the ask. We hope that you will listen and share this podcast with your networks, and there'll be information on how you can do that after I stop gabbing here. But we're also looking for people who are passionate about solving this housing crisis to reach out and find out how you can get involved and how you can support this project. The Hub is proud to be partnering with Trinity United Church, and we're so grateful for the way the regions have already supported us. And now we need you, who is listening to this, who is watching this, who is passionate about seeing housing justice take shape in our communities. We need you to reach out, and we need you to partner with us so that we can help build a more just and inclusive world for everybody. Thanks for listening. See you later.
Well, a call to housing justice. So I hope that you've heard Adam and pursue possibilities in that regard. And now, before a break, Cheryl Ann is going to update us on the tri-regional governance review. Cheryl Ann, go for it.
Thank you, President Jane. The regional councils of Antler River Watershed, Western Ontario Waterways, and Horseshoe Falls collaborated together on a joint governance and a joint staffing model from the very beginning. And as part of that collaboration, they built in a timeline for evaluation. The original timeline had the evaluation happening in 2022 with the expectation that General Council was going to be in 2021. With the shift of the General Council date, the evaluation date was shifted until the fall of 2023. What we discovered is that when we began to plan for evaluation, we determined that the evaluation would benefit from outside facilitation. And we have lined up Jenny Stevens, who is known to many people from her work previously in Hamilton Conference and then with the Office of Vocation, along with Bill Allen, who has an extensive history of experience with not-for-profit corporations from one of our congregations in WOW, to work in partnership to lead the evaluation. And their availability was not till the beginning of 2023. So early in 2023, our tri-regional evaluation process will get underway. The evaluation is going to look at a few critical components. One is, what was the goal of structural change when it happened in 2019? Well, there were three key goals. The one was to reduce the number of volunteers who were needed. The second was to simplify and expedite decision-making. Could we allow decisions to be made once rather than by a committee, to a division, to a presbytery, etc.? And the third was that decisions were becoming very complex concerning employment issues and property concerns, and the need for staff expertise had been identified. So could we provide staff who were knowledgeable about particular fields to resource decisions? When we go to review our governance, we'll look at those criteria and say, did what we design meet the goals of structural change? Did it reduce volunteers? Did it expedite decision-making? Did it provide staff resourcing? We'll also measure our governance against the purpose of the Regional Council. In Antler River Watershed, our purpose is holding and encouraging communities of faith. And then additionally, we'll measure our governance against the values, the how we said we would do it, which was that our values would be seek reconciliation, love unconditionally, and risk courageously. In addition to our governance, we'll examine our staff sharing module. We committed to sharing staff for a few reasons. The one was if we shared staff, we would be able to carve out positions that had a focus on congregational health. And so the well-being of the congregation would not be lost in the midst of work of pastoral relations. The second was we wanted to provide specialists, particularly in areas of faith formation, right relations, justice work. We wanted to develop a staff model that reduced the dependency on any single staff person, as it had been our experience that when that happened, we de facto created informal bishops. So this was a way to say, how is there a larger staff team? And that's proven invaluable because it has allowed us to have different staff assist across regional boundaries when we've had need due to personal concerns of staff or illness, etc. And then lastly, part of the goal was to say, we want to model sharing. We believe sharing is a key criteria for communities of faith moving forward. And we want to model for them what we believe is important. All of this will be part of what is considered as the evaluation. So keep posted. You'll hear more early in 2023, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you want to send them to me. But in the meantime, that's a brief update of what's planned. Thank you, President Jane.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl Ann. And we will stay tuned because we know there's more to come in the new year. So it'll be interesting and informative, I'm sure. Okay. Now, I know there's been a few comments made about getting excited about a meeting or not, and reading reports that are exciting or put you to sleep. So I don't know. I'm kind of challenging those comments as we go here. As the president, I just feel I must. However, I can't imagine that you're going to be more excited than you are right now because we've got a break coming. So we have a break for about 5 minutes, everybody. So it's 10 to 8 right now. We'll be back about 5 to 8. Okay. So quick break, and then we'll come back and proceed with our evening. All right. On your mark, get set, go. Thank you for the musical interlude, and welcome back after your quick little break. So we come now to the GC44 report, and Antler River Watershed General Council 44 commissioners are Richard Auckland, Tabitha Carey, Gabriella Heidinger, Olaf Kitchen, Kenji Marui, Shane McDowell, Wendy Noble, Joanne Silcox, Marianne Silverthorne, Colin Swan, Rebecca Whiting, Pam Wilcox, Bree Wohlers, and myself. Now, my screen background, as you may also see the same background behind other GC commissioners, reflects the theme based on Mark chapter 8, verses 27 through 30, and Jesus asking, "Who do you say that I am?" And this scripture was read or presented many, many times in many languages throughout the meeting. And here's one of the presentations of the reading. And I'll ask John now to play that video for us.
You mean the story in a Mark chapter 8, verses 27 to 30? Well, Master, let me tell you how it go. One day Jesus and him followers, them a go down at the village them in a Caesarea Philippi. Then on them way down there, him turn to him followers, them a ask them say, who people say him is? Some of them say John the Baptist, some of them say Elijah, and some of them say one of the other prophet them. Then Jesus turned around and said to them, so who you think me is? Then the one Peter, yes, the rambunctious one, where always get himself in a trouble. Yes, him said to Jesus, you are the Messiah. And guess what? Jesus turned around and paged the one of them and said, nobody tell nobody who me is. Yes, sir. And Mr. Sir, I saw it saying in the scripture.
All right. Some of our GC44 commissioners will now be presenting different parts of what was going on at the meeting. And so I'm going to call upon Colin Swan to get us started. Colin.
Thank you, President Jane. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the process. And I will tell you this, that having been at General Council in 2006, sitting at large round tables with the same people for several days straight, the process was different, challenging at times because you really didn't get a sense of knowing each other quite in the same manner as had we been meeting face to face. But it was a positive aspect that in the midst of COVID, we were able to still meet via Zoom and by FeedLoop, and a combination of the two platforms in order to share our thoughts and proceed with the business of the General Council. It was broken into basically 3 stages, and I'm going to refer you to page 15 of your workbook because it's outlined very nicely there. Hopefully you've read that. We started off with learning sessions. Well, what's a learning session? It's the same as kind of going to school where the teacher stands up and says, here's what I want you to learn. And we did that. The material that we were presented with, we absorbed over several weeks, February to May, in individual sessions. And then we spent a more intensive time together in middle of June, where we were broken into groups, and some groups worked with the feedback I've heard. Some of the groups worked very well in terms of being able to pick out the materials that were being presented and what they wanted to talk about, and where their heartfelt passions were and where the Spirit was leading them. And others groups, perhaps not so much. But those groups were relatively small, but larger than what the table groups had been when we were in person in previous general councils. And then finally, we got together for intensive discussion sessions, which were decision-making. And the comments that had come out of the discussion sessions were sent to a team that tried to take all of the discussions, look at the comments that were made, and then try and present a proposal back to the floor of the General Council to be voted on that encapsulated all of the the discussions that had taken place. And I thought the facilitation team did an excellent job of doing that. They must have spent many hours overnight trying to piece together all of the comments and to make sense of some of them. And out of that, they would propose a way forward. In other words, do we want to vote on it here on the floor of the General Council? Do we want to refer it to the executive? Exactly what is the recommendation that would be wrestled with by the General Council as a whole? Was it effective? I think yes. We had in excess of 40 items to go through, and the items were not, shall we say, they were not simple in their implications. Some of them appeared to be at the start, but they were very intricate, and I must say that the facilitation team did an excellent job in what they brought back to the floor of the council as a whole. And with that, that was our process.
Great. Thank you, Colin. Appreciate that very much. Gabriella and Shane are now going to speak a little bit about some of the proposals. So I'll turn it over to Gabriella Heiniger and Shane McDowell.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle. My pronouns are she, her, and I join you from the Community of Faith at Courtright and Six Line United Churches in Moortown and Courtright. Shane and I just divvied up some of the most pertinent proposals that we thought of. The first and foremost was a proposal for a principle-based approach, and this is GCE03 or WF07. And it is moved with strong support and the encouragement of the Indigenous Church as a precursor to other justice proposals from General Council 44. The support also included the adoption of public international legal framework. And it is a proposal that moves to initiate a basic protocol and principles as to how we approach social justice in the United Church, rather than an individually based approach. So two of the related proposals, both the issues in Palestine and Israel and the proposal on anti-Semitism, were voted as to be delayed in any further action until this principle-based approach is moved forward. So regarding the proposal GCE04 or WF08, the initiative on Palestine and Israel, that though the recognition was of great importance from the council, it was recommended that there's no further action taken until GC03 is implemented. Likewise, the movement with anti-Semitism, following an incident at General Council 44, this proposal moved by the General Secretary addresses anti-Semitism in an attempt to raise awareness and working towards change and progress in the elimination of anti-Semitism in church practices. I will turn it over to Shane.
All right. My name is Shane McDowell. My pronouns are he and him, and I am the rep to Kennesaw Camp. So I just have a couple more proposals. The first one is climate justice and renewing our commitment to that. So the integrity of our theological commitments to care and live in respectful relationship with creation require bold, daring, and public action. The focus of these efforts must be our buildings, where heat and light continue to be the largest contributor to emissions. And as the pandemic draws to a close, transportation emissions may present another important place for sustained emission reductions. The emergent nature of this crisis require this work to be expanded with a more ambitious emission reduction target for the church as a whole. At General Council 42, they approved the carbon emission goal consistent with the Paris Agreement. In General Council 43, they set a target of 80% reductions of emissions by 2050. So this proposal, which was approved, committed the church to a bold and hopeful climate strategy that accelerates the emission reduction goal to 80% by the year 2030. The discussion for this proposal took place during a continent-wide and almost hemisphere-wide heat wave, which strengthened the need to act swiftly. While there was substantial agreement with the urgent action needed for this proposal, there was some hesitancy as to whether the goal was too aggressive. Some felt the change from 2050 to 2030 was setting the church up for failure, although this seemed to be balanced in part by the need to do something. There was widespread support for this proposal. In principle, however, the details such as tracking, measuring, and implementation were left to the individual communities of faith. The last proposal was very exciting and led to a lot of excitement at council, or at General Council. So it was kind of a two-part proposal. One was proposed by the National Indigenous Circle called Restructuring the Indigenous Church, and a similar proposal called Living into Reconciliation was proposed by the General Secretary. Indigenous peoples have met regularly over many decades and held deep and ongoing conversations about matters relating to our Indigenous ministries and our relationship to the United Church. Unwittingly, the church restructuring of 2018 caused crisis in the National Indigenous Circle by destabilizing our ways of working together. It is time for us to move towards being partners in God's call to all the earth. This means a change in structure for the United Church of Canada. With respect, we need to allow one another to simply be who we are. It is a time to remember this covenant as work as two bodies side by side, the United Church with all of its complexity, the National Indigenous Circle with similar complexity. Together, we will support each other's journey. This proposal begins to address the Indigenous framework envisioned in the calls to the church and accepted by General Council 43. It is the next step in creating a truly Indigenous United Church. Some of the outcomes of this proposal were to authorize a Category 3 remit to approve a new structure of the Indigenous Church within the United Church in relationship to the settler church, as will be determined by the Indigenous Church in its own time and through its own processes, within the framework of the calls to the church and without the need for further remit approval, and to approve shortening the time for study and information from 24 months to 12 months. It will also identify and remove all the structural barriers to developing and sustaining an autonomous Indigenous church within the United Church of Canada, consistent with the caretaker's call to the church and the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And it will continue the conversation of restructuring right relations and reparations with the National Indigenous Circle. During the learning sessions, this topic held its own dedicated session where this was hosted by the National Indigenous Circle. It was a wonderful evening of hearing stories and sharing experiences and asking questions. As we moved through this process, we were reminded of the diversity and the complexity within the Indigenous nations. There are hundreds of nations that we lump together with the term Indigenous. However, each vary in their beliefs and customs, and all are honored. All groups affirm these proposals. And in my group especially, there was actually very little discussion due to the broad support for these proposals. It was noted that awareness training is needed to both strengthen our commitment to right relations and to ensure the remit's success. These proposals remove barriers, allow the church to continue its journey of reconciliation, and allow the Indigenous Church and the United Church to walk side by side, structurally autonomous, spiritually connected, just like the two-row wampum. And I believe we'll turn it over to Olaf.
Well, I'm just doing a wrap-up type of thing. Our moderator, Carmen Lansdowne, was installed. I was really impressed with her, seeing her involved in the General Council, that she participated, and I'm really sort of pleased with her. And she brings her Indigenous culture with her. But how shall I say, some moderators can be just showpieces. She's not. She's one that's involved and participating in the life of the church. And briefly overview of things. My perspective, I was 50 years ago, I was commissioner to the 24th General Council in Niagara Falls. And it's interesting, the change in the General Council. We met in a hall in Niagara Falls at a hotel, Brock, and we met in the ballroom, straight rows. We had people collecting votes. It was all laid out. We were meeting at the same time as the Anglican bishops, because one of our tasks was to vote for union with the Anglicans and the Disciples of Christ. And it's interesting that union with the Anglicans, or working with them, has come up in the 44th General Council. But we had several things. We voted on the Red Hymn Book, and we voted to end the United Church and to join in the Union. And at that General Council, the 24th General Council, people were trying to change the male imagery, and it was laughed at. People quite couldn't understand the idea of changing the terminology. And somebody said, well, we want to remove sex from the manual, and it just backfired. But it was the beginning, and the church has been changing and growing. General councils have been changing. You had table groups. And in the 44th General Council, we have the discussion group. And my discussion group, I found, was very good. We got into the issues. We went through all of the issues. I changed my mind on some of the things, issues, through the discussion and the debate back and forth in our discussion group. And I found that most helpful. And then we, in the final sessions, it was really, I think, quite good in the voting. It was funny, from the 24th General Council to the 44th General Council, you still have your microphone hogs and your chat room hogs and people that just like to speak and speak and speak. They're always there. They're a part of the church. But the church is growing and moving in new directions. And I think the 44th General Council is wonderful and is sort of moving in new directions, which the church needs to move in. And it's good changing. In the last 50 years, it's positive, and the next 50 will be very interesting to see how the church evolves and grows. I think that's my 2 cents worth. President Jane?
Thank you, my friend, Olive, for that presentation, and also to Colin and to Shane and to Gabriel. Cheryl Ann, did you want to speak to update on the remit?
I'd be pleased to do that, President Jane. Also, for the information of the members of Antler River Watershed Regional Council, we included the outcome of the proposals submitted by the Regional Council in the workbook. So you can find data there. Please feel free to reach out to any commissioner if you have any questions. In terms of the remit is a Category 3 remit, which means that all regional councils and all pastoral charges will vote on it. The remit is to talk about how we develop a process for the Indigenous church to determine its own shape and needs without that requiring all of the rest of the church to endorse it. How do we let go of the authority we have over that? The question for the remit will be confirmed by the General Council Executive in February of 2023. And the remit package, including educational resources, will be distributed in the beginning of March 2024, with a return date of the end of February of in 2023, the beginning of March 2023, the package will be distributed with a return date of the end of February 2024. And over that period, we will support congregations that reach out to us. We will, once we know what educational materials are being developed, we will also seek to find other materials to accompany that. I think Shane raised an excellent point. How do we prepare for the remit? I did put the link to the calls to the church, which are on the United Church of Canada website, in the chat. That's a good starting place. We also turn you to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action. That's also a helpful starting point. So these are places where we can begin to think about how do we prepare so we can look at the substance of the remit in an understanding of a church seeking reconciliation. Thank you, President Jane.
Thank you for the update on the remit. So the values of the General Council strategic plan, deep spirituality, bold discipleship, daring justice, were alive and at work throughout GC44. The process implemented certainly reflected in a good light the changing church. And given that there was more content than time allowed to discuss some of the proposals, however, I wonder if one of the next steps is to heed values practiced by our Indigenous siblings in faith by taking the time needed to listen to the concerns being expressed and not beholden to the practice of being timekeepers. A shout out to Commissioner Kenji Marui, who was on the General Council 44 worship team, and who, along with Grafton and Eileen Antone, were among the Who Do You Say That I Am scripture readers during the installation of the new moderator service in August. As you will have noticed, the GC44 report found in the fall meeting workbook, the concerns expressed in the proposals put forward by the ARW were either not shared by or did not have enough support from commissioners across the country, and this means that no further action will be taken regarding these proposals. Deep spirituality, bold discipleship, daring justice. Deep, bold, daring. Jesus asks, "Who do you say that I am?" We conclude our report with another video of the question, "Who do you say that I am?"
Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages around Caesarea Philippi. On the way, Jesus asked them, "Who do the people say that I am? Who do the people say that I am? Do they understand? Can they comprehend? Who do they say that I am?" replied, "Some say you are John the Baptist. Others say you are Elijah. And still others say you are one of the prophets." And Jesus looked them right in the eye, and he said, But you, who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am? Do you comprehend? Who do you say that I am? Peter, struck in his heart, answered, "Why, Lord, you are the Messiah." Who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am?
Who do you say that I am? A question Jesus asks of all of us. Before we close our evening with prayer led by Greg and Mark, I'll ask Carrie for any reminders for Saturday. Carrie.
Thank you, President Jane. And I'd like to say thank you to our General Council 44 commissioners for their work as they worked very diligently over several months by Zoom, virtually, to wrestle with the many motions that came before the court and decisions to help move our United Church of Canada forward in new directions. So thank you to all of our commissioners. A reminder, because you may have just glanced over it on page 25th, point number 13 of proposal number 1, that the deadline for new business, if you have any that you want to bring before this court, please either send that new business item to myself at keastover40@hotmail.com or to Cheryl Ann Stadlbauer-Sampa at csampa@unitedchurch.ca as it's listed on your screen. We would appreciate that. That deadline is 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Thank you, President Jane.
Thank you. And over is
Friends, as we come to the end of our time together, I'm sure, like me, your hearts and minds and spirits are full of what you have seen and heard. Some of you are feeling buoyed up. Some of you are not sure what to feel. Some of us are missing that we can't hug people across Zoom. So maybe we can do one of these, just kind of like try and get some hugs across Zoom. And rather than finishing with prayer, we thought that maybe it would be good to finish with a prayerful song. And so if you have Voices United around, we're going to be on 381, Spirit of Life, and the words will be on your screen as well. We're going to sing this through twice, aren't we? Perfect. So this is nice and gentle and contemplative, just to kind of get your minds in the right space as we wrap up this evening.
Spirit of life, the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise on the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me, Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise on the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice, roots hold me close, wings set me free, Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
And back to you, Jane.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Greg. Friends, I hope you have a restful evening and a good night's sleep. And we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow morning for 9 a.m. Go in peace and go in safety, for you cannot go where God is not. God bless. Good night.